Thank you, Jay, for sharing. I definitely agree. Joining support groups, reaching out, because there's always probably someone who's battling the same issues that you're battling. So we'll dive into Julian. If you can just share with us, what were some of the things that, you did to cope during this time in your life?
So for me, this is an ongoing battle because I'm still coping. And I've actually dealt with suicidal ideation since I was in elementary school. I can remember that my first suicidal note, I was in 5th grade. So for me, especially as an older gentleman, this is something that dates back many years. Um, but and as it stood, I began my medical transitional phase at the age of 45. So that was just a few years ago. Um, I find that as a culture, number one, as an American culture, and then number two, as an African American culture, it is a huge taboo, and there is a big stigma to not talk about things. And we definitely don't talk about this. It is definitely widely unacceptable. And in the African American culture, when it comes to anything taboo, it's sweep it under the rug. We're not talking about this. The age-old adage, it doesn't come out your house. And if it's certain things, we're not going to talk about it in the house. And, it's unfortunately, and I really hate to use this, but this generational curse goes all the way back to the early slavery days. Because when things happen, unfortunately, it was, first off, you couldn't talk about it, and it was a non-talked about situation because you couldn't let the master hear. You couldn't let your owners hear. So we were not going to talk about this because we don't want them to know that we're having an issue. And as time goes on, it developed more and more reasons as to why we don't talk about this, to a point to where it is innately, genetically, psychologically in us. And it is a stigma that has to be broken, chains that have to be dropped off. So what I find myself doing is, once I got to a point to where it was like, oh, wow, we are allowed to talk about this. Oh, wow, I am allowed to see a therapist. Because I'll be the first to admit, I'm not finna go see a therapist. I'm not crazy. I'm not a psycho. That's, excuse the term, but this is how I thought about it at the time. That is something that's for white people. They do that. But you know what? Yes, they do. Because they believe in having the conversations that we do not have. And when we as a people decided, hey, it is okay that we can actually talk, we can sit down, we can open up that channel, we can release, that's when we're able to let go. That's when we're able to put in the work, to have the work made so that we can see ourselves. And that's the whole thing. When we're not able to see ourselves, we're not able to put that out for others to see us, because they definitely don't see us. And so I have attempted suicide many times. I can't even count them on both my hands. And I know there's a thing where they say if a person really wanted to kill themselves, they really would have done it. And they're not just attempting suicide for a show and to get attention. So I will share this. In the different times that I've done it, I have literally had doctors tell me they don't know how in the world I'm still here and alive. Because from what I've done and what I've taken, I should be dead. I should have been dead. And I had someone very dear to me tell me that the reason why that never happened was because I have things that I have to do. My wife tells me all the time now that my life is not my own. The journeys that I'm going through is not for me. The story I'm going through is not for me. And it literally took until this year for me to learn that. At the age of 48, once I learned that, even before I had heard the words, I've been able to help so many others that were having suicide attempts or suicidal ideations, from friends of my children, random people that I've met in the street. I've made connections because they've seen something in me and have come up to me out of the blue, half the time not even knowing and wanting to talk, and been able to get them to get to a place to where they can see themselves. So the biggest thing I can say as to why and how I deal with that is I allow myself the space. I allow myself to know that it's okay. It is okay to be seen. It is okay to be here. It is okay to be me. And that is something that I literally have to tell myself every day, to this day.
That was the self-love, brother, that you had for yourself. Because I know for me, I had to really dig deep inside myself and said that, look in the mirror and see myself and start living for myself instead of living for everyone else. Because I was the type of person that was really living for everyone else. I put everybody else in front of me. Mm-hmm. And when I started living for myself and authentically living for myself, I was like, fuck what everybody else is thinking. I'm going to be who I am, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
And, that was one of the things that I was lacking as a kid. And that support system that I had when I got older, I wish I had it when I was younger. Mm-hmm. Because the depression was real.
Oh yeah.
And they try to say that we are mentally ill because we want to live our life on how we want to live it. And that's why I had to set a point where I define who I am as an individual. I live my life the way I live it, and to hell with everybody else. Because I know, as a man of faith, I know that I have a real good relationship with my God. And I know that if I am created in his image, because I know a lot of people try to use the Bible against us. And as a minister, I know that if I'm created his image and he knew who I was when I came out the womb, before I was even born, that was a part of me that said, the God in me is able to go on and live the life, knowing that God loves me, knowing that I'm not an abomination. Because they try to say we are an abomination. No. There is the part of the spirits that come in. Because before there was Adam and Eve, there was spirits. There was the Trinity. And that's who we represent. And we are the Enochs in the Bible. The transgender individuals. We are them. And I live my life right now. There are different things that I go through. Yes, depression is one of them. And mental illness is a part of the Black community. You had mentioned that earlier, where we are supposed to suppress everything that we're feeling. And as Black men, we have come to a point where we adapted that toxicity. And to me, that is not even what a man is.
Exactly.
Or how we supposed to live our life.
Exactly.
Most of the things that you see on TV, that's what I thought. I grew up with men, Black men. I grew up with hustlers. I grew up with pimps. I grew up with all of that. But that doesn't define who a man is. We define what a man is. And we define on how we live our life. And once I feel as though once we feel that in ourselves and we start loving ourselves and we start embracing ourselves and the Black community stop not including us in the equation, we'll be better off as the African American community. They say Black Lives Matter, but when it comes to the transgender community, that's where we feel alienated. We only count when we are standing with them, you know, but we are a part of the Black community, whether they like it or not. And until we can get to that point, there will always be a situation. But I tell my trans masculine brothers as well as sisters and non-gender conforming that we are a part of that Black community, and they need to start in including us in the conversation, because in numbers we are big, but when you start doing the separation, that's when we have an issue. That's when we have a problem. And it's all about respect, which we don't even have with ourselves, because when we say Black Lives Matter, when we killing one another, does Black Lives matter? It should. We should be like they go around with the Breonna Taylors and everybody else. But when it comes to the Black trans community, they push us to the side like we don't matter. But yes, we do. And to the religious part of it, if we are a creation of God, then we should always matter. We should always matter. We are Black because when we are out there as brothers, they see my Blackness before they see my transness. So
yes,
the question is why we are not included in the conversation when it comes to stuff like this. And it should be, if Black Lives Matter, that should be all of us, not just some of us. And that's the issue that I have with Black Lives Matter. You know, I have been to the rallies, and I've been to the last one that was in Washington, D.C. And it's just recently that the trans equation has been a part of the group. And that is part of where the the mental part of mental health come in. Because it's like, if we are excluded and we are only used, that's just like when you go to the church, they don't mention the gay individuals that's leading the choir, but they sound good, right? It's the same thing. So my thing is, we have to stand up for ourselves and also like create a seat at the table, because it's one of the things. We are people of color, and we all go through the same thing. The taboos of the don't tell everybody what you're going through. Oh, men don't cry. We have feelings. We should be able to cry. We should be able to express how we feel. And even with the Black men, we should be able to, that cisgender Black male, we should be able to express how we feel. And we adapt that. And that's a part of the psyche that we go through. And when I say define who you are, be proud of who you are. And until I started being proud of who I am and started loving myself, and to say fuck how people feel, because I know I am created in God's image, and you cannot tell me that God doesn't love me. For the religious buffs, for the holy thumpers, God loves me for who I am, because if he didn't, I would never have been created.